Hey guys, it's Lane here with HobbiesofaMan, and today we're going to be doing another comic book review. We're going to be looking at 5 Ghosts, Volume 1 of 3. Although this series has not finished yet, it's been about 8 years since Volume 3 came out, so it's been on an indefinite hiatus. But I recently bought this volume at Half Price Books, and I really enjoyed it, so I want to talk about it now. So it's written by Frank J. Barbiere, I think, and with art by Chris Mooneyham. With S.M. Vidauri and Lauren Affe doing some secondary work on this. Then it's published by Image, as you guys can see right there. The demographic for this is teen plus, which would be kind of like 16 plus, I guess. And the genres here are occult detective stories, pulp, heroic fantasy to an extent. And it also has this element of adventure to it that's kind of similar to Tarzan or Indiana Jones. That's kind of like, let's go searching for something in a weird area, right? So, yeah, and in terms of adaptation, it does not have one currently, but there was at some point talks of making a show out of this, and I think it'd be really cool if they did. It'd be pretty easy to do, so that'd be pretty cool, but it doesn't seem like that's a thing. This story's been on hiatus for years and years, so it's probably unlikely that that's ever going to happen, right? So, yeah. And my initial rating for this is a 4 out of 5. So, if you want to get around to why I got to this rating, feel free to stay for the rest of the video. But if you're not interested at this point, feel free to leave. So, yeah, the premise here is that Fabian Gray is a treasure hunter of some sort. And he has special abilities that come from this accident he had, where he gets access to 5 ghosts. However, these ghosts aren't of real people. They're fictional characters. So he has the ghost of Robin Hood, the ghost of Merlin, the ghost of Sherlock Holmes, of Dracula, and of Musashi, a Japanese samurai character, right? So, yeah. And he's able to invoke their spirit and take on their abilities for a few moments throughout his working situations, right? Throughout his life. And the thing is that they're not currently working, and he has to figure out why. And as this is happening, he's also being chased by an evil group or an evil person that has similar abilities. And so he has to fight them off, as he kind of has to work through the fact that his powers don't work correctly. So overall, really good stuff. So yeah, plotline wise, Fabian is looking for something. He finds it, and he then ends up selling it to this woman from Spain who ends up paying a lot for it, but it turns out that it's not what he wanted. And so he spends the night with her and then moves on and goes back home to London, where his powers go haywire. He is thankfully saved by one of his friends, but his powers are not currently working correctly, and that is a big problem. So, yeah. Then we get to see that that woman from Spain is attacked by this man who has similar powers to Fabian, and it seems like she dies. Turns out she doesn't, and she is recovered later, and she keeps repeating this phrase over and over again that relates to Fabian. And then we get to see that Fabian and Sebastian, his friend that saved them, go on an adventure. They're flying over somewhere that looks kind of like Africa. They end up crashing into this swamp area, I guess you could call it, this marsh, and end up attacked by these natives that seem to follow a jungle god, so much so that they have tattoos, or actually extra eyeballs. I'm not really sure. I think it was tattoos to represent all of the 8 eyes of a spider. And somehow they end up being saved by this Asian guy who happens to also have special powers like Fabian. And then they're taken to this place called Shangri-La, which is a real-life physical manifestation of the fake place, thanks to these powers that all of these characters seem to have. We get explanation of what these powers are. They're dreamstones. They're these things that physically coalesce the dreaming power of people into an object. Then this object can be harnessed by an individual in order to create something. Usually it's in order to have powers, but it can also be used to do other things, right? So Yeah, and then Fabian is giving kind of an ultimatum situation where it's like, we have the way to fix your powers here, but you have to go through this set of trials, and if you don't succeed, you die. Are you willing to risk that? He says yes. He goes into the area. He kind of baptizes himself in these waters in Shangri-La, and he goes through 5 different trials. It's very similar to Star Wars, when Luke goes into the cave and stuff like that, or if you watch the Clone Wars, like the chapters in Ilium where they're getting their crystals. It's kind of the same vibe. We have the character enter the underworld, go through a set of tasks, and then return different, right? So that's what happens. He's going through these trials. He passes 4 of them, but the final one, Dracula's trial, is quite difficult for him, and he fails initially. He starts drowning. He returns to it and manages to eventually pass it right in the nick of time to save his friend Sebastian. I think the other guy, the Asian guy called Shang Guo, I think he dies. I don't remember exactly, but then he has a big battle with Iago, the bad guy from earlier that attacked the Spanish woman. And then they set up for the next adventure. And overall, I had a lot of fun with this. I thought this was really great. It harkens back to a lot of things that I like, and it was just really, really enjoyable. So, yeah, in terms of characters, we have Fabian, Sebastian, Sylvia, who is Fabian's sister, Iago, and Shang Guo, as well as the 5 ghosts. So, and also the Spanish lady, but I forgot her name. Overall, there really isn't too much characterization here. It's one of those stories where you learn about the character as you go through the stories, and it doesn't really matter because you know that they follow a trope, and this trope informs you about everything that they are and who they are as a person, and it works really, really well. He is a relatively egotistical kind of person, but when it comes down to it, when it's important, he will put himself on the line, and he has a moral code that he follows. He's very much a standard protagonist type character for these types of stories, right? So yeah, I like him a lot. I think it's good. Iago is pretty interesting, but he's only interesting as a negative version of Fabian. He doesn't really have a character in of himself, so your mileage may vary with that character quite a bit. And to me, I thought it was fun. So yeah, in terms of world building, we get introduced to the concept of dreams and dreamstones, what they do, how they do them, and what happens, how people can join with these stones, get powers. We have this element of occultism and pulp style situations happening. And we also get to see that Fabian's reason for having the powers that he does is because he assimilated with the stone differently from how other people do it. And this difference causes this fractioning of his powers, but also allows him to be maybe not more powerful than others, but a little bit more diverse in his abilities than other people. And of course, this is kind of par for the course. A main character is going to have special abilities. That's just how it goes. And I think they did a good job with the world building here. Overall, I liked it. In terms of art style, I think this art style is kind of odd, but also once you get used to it, it works really, really well. Like, I like it a lot. So let me see if I can show you some specific moments here. So as you can see here, whenever he taps into the powers of a ghost, you can see this kind of apparition above him. Then we have these sequences here. Here's Iago introduced. Here's a battle sequence that I think is cool. It's also a flashback. And here's some of the other characters. So overall, good stuff. I like this introduction to this character quite a bit. I like how that looks. And I think it's odd, but it works really, really nicely. And I think the colors also suit this type of story very well. So overall, the artwork is nice. It works nicely with what the story is trying to do. So yeah, returning back to our rating, it's a 4 out of 5. I think it was great. As in the story was good, but even though I did say the art style was good, I'm saying that in retrospect. At the time of writing this, I felt that the art was serviceable, but not so good. If the art was like a style that I find more appealing personally, this would have been a 5 out of 5. But because it's a style that I don't like personally, it just happens to work for the story, I would give it a 4 out of 5. Because the enjoyment of a comic book is partially the story, partially the the art, and the art here doesn't really bring me that much enjoyment because it's odd. I do like the colors though, but the actual art, it just doesn't look the way that I want comic book art to look, and so that's why I'm not enjoying it as much as I could, right? So maybe that's weird, I don't know, but that's my thought process here. I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Let me know down below if you've read this book, and if you haven't, let me know if you are going to read it now, and thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.